We're just an amateur rugby team from South America, from Uruguay, and we're heading Chile to play a rugby match. But we couldn't fill the plane, and we invited the parents of the kids that were in school to fill in the plane. So there was a 45 turbo propeller airplane for 45 people sitting there. We had to cross over the Andes to Chile. A friend of mine that through the window said, "Aren't we flying too close to the mountains? Because between the clouds you could see these huge peaks merging." And someone else said, "No, you're out of proportion. The mountains are so huge that you think that they are close, but they are far away." But at that moment, the plane put just full power to the engines, and it began climbing and shaking a little bit, everything under control, and then it hit the mountain.
Power! We need more power! I can't!
It lost the tail and the wings. It wasn't a frontal impact, you know. It was climbing and only the tail was left there, and it began sliding at a very high speed on the ladder of the mountain and lost both wings. So it was like a bobsledge sliding down and waiting just to smash against the mountain. I thought I'm going to die. I never thought in my life I was going to die so young. All the mysteries about God and what's after death is going to be developing in front of my eyes. And what happened is that the plane came to the end of the mountain, and in the valley, just struck in the end of the valley, and incredible force of the seats got dislodged. I was thrown to a big wall of the plane. I had a big blow on my head, and as I was fainting, I said, "It has stopped. I'm alive." I make an inventory of my parts of the body. My legs are here, my arms are here, my head is there. I have survived. I cannot believe I have survived the crash, you know. Then I look around, and it was a huge mess of people dying, suffering, bleeding. And I say, I must get out of the way because all the firemen are going to come around, the emergency doctors and the police and everything is going to be around. And I took my seatbelt and I don't know how to go back to the plane. The tail was missing, and we were in the middle of the Andes with no help, no nothing, in something that I thought it was imagination, that I couldn't believe that that was happening. Like a nightmare from which I had to wake up was what I should do. Someone said the pilot is alive, and he was the key man. He would handle the information. So we rushed into the cabin, and normally the instruments are a meter away from the pilot, and he was completely trapped, and the co-pilot had died, and he was saying, we passed Curicó. So we tried on the radio of the plane, but the batteries were on the tail, and the tail had been broken apart. So there was no energy at the plane. The night came on, and we began freezing and shaking and grabbing each other, and people that were wounded were shouting in pain. I don't know if Dante's Inferno exists. I would say that was that night at the fuselage. We were all cramped there, not knowing, some guys being a little bit delirious, and it was horrible, horrible, horrible. But then as days go by, you realize that you're on your own, and that was an incredible experience which I learned from the rest of my life. That first you must do for yourself and not wait to be rescued. But then someone had a little radio, transistor radio, and we could hear the news. We were back connected to the world, and they were saying there had been 33 plane crashes in the Andes, no survivors, probably they are all dead, and we are going to look for the rest and the pieces of the wreckages of the plane. And it's a very strange situation that people announcing your death when you're alive. And I was trying to go by the airwaves of the radio and say, hey, I'm alive. Don't let it down. Look for us, look for us. And I was working on telepathy and telling my mother, Mommy, I'm alive, look for us, look for us.
And that day I went to visit Roberto's mother because I was missing Roberto because I haven't seen him for one day. So that I went to his house, and at that very moment they were telling on the telephone to Roberto's mother that the plane has crashed. At the beginning, of course, we didn't want to accept it. I said, how come that happened to us? Plane crash in the movies. Why that is going to happen to us? And then I remember Roberto's mother screaming, Roberto, be strong. I send you my strength. You must be strong. Overcome this. I know that you can.
If you have a good feeling, you just express it. If you have a sad feeling, you keep it for you. So every news was tried to be given in the positive way, and the sense of humor was never lost. And this is the spirit of the Andes. This is the way, the society we created there. And a very brave friend said, Roberto, we have good news. The decision and the dilemma of waiting to be rescued and maybe die waiting or trying to get out of here is over. Because I just have heard on the radio that the search has been called off, so we are on us now. It's an eternal snow place, no trees, no vegetation, no life. You feel like life shrinks every time a friend was dying. You were like on the waiting list for dying. When someone died, you were not sorry for him. You were sorry for yourself. Sometimes I remember in the mountain and some say, this is like being in prison. No, being in prison is a 5-star hotel. You have water, you have food, you have a bed. They were like living on a graveyard surrounded by your dead friends. This is the worst place you can imagine in life or in death maybe.
Chocolate-covered peanuts, small chocolate bars, 4 bottles of wine.
First, we ate all the creams, and I began chewing the belts because it had leather, but then you get poisoned because all the leathers now are processed. And then you see how your belt goes one hole every day. You're shrinking, you're dying. And then there's a physical need for food. It's like your body asking you, we need something. So this was a fuel that was appropriate.
Now, if the search has been called off, then we're on our own to save our lives, and we've got to eat.
Eat what? No. The dead?
No.
It means we should eat the dead.
Look, I don't want to talk about this.
Neither do I, Gustavo, but we have to. We're starving and we're trapped.
I would say it was a very humble and most humiliating experience, that you must degrade yourself to the lowest level.
Very difficult to cut. Meat's almost frozen. I'm gonna eat this piece.
Over the fire, we put the meat of our dead friends, and we could eat the meat that was cooked, because to eat it raw was more horrible. But at the same time, there was an issue, because if you eat it raw, you have more vitamins, and the proteins don't get lost. And it's incredible how you get familiar with eating the dead bodies. I think that the beginning looked huge and tremendous. It was a big psychological issue, and I felt the humiliation of my life when I had to take the first piece. When we began doing it, it became part of our everyday life. That's the incredible thing about this story, because I am a guinea pig. I'm just telling you what happened. I don't say it's good, it's bad. I don't think this is, God is going to judge us. And the mystical feeling and the closeness to God is a thing I never felt so close. Yes, God, I want to survive. You must help me. I must go back. I must tell my mother not to cry anymore, that I'm alive. There was the spirit and the motto of the mountains. And this is what I want to transmit. How in adversity you can catch up with a proper attitude. We thought that we couldn't be worse, and that's the lesson of the avalanche. You always can be worse unless you're dead. And an avalanche covered the plane, and I was completely disconnected. You don't hear anything, you don't see anything, and then you try desperate to get out of there, and you realize you are going to die. And I learned that dying is not that terrible feeling. And as I was vanishing away and thinking, if someone gets out of here, he will tell my mother that I died in the Andes, and I was kind of saying bye-bye to life. And then a very nice feeling between my legs because I was peeing and the temperature of the urine is hot, so I had this warm feeling. And then someone took the snow of my face, and I could breathe again, and I was back again, back into hell. We were buried alive for 3 days, and I had the most incredible feeling that I never thought that human souls would have. This feeling envy of someone that had died.
8 of us are dead.
Because there's nothing left here, nothing left. I don't have anything but life. And I said, while there's life, there's hope. I mustn't think with the brain. I must think with my heart and keep on going to see what happens. And then on the next day, the light was there, and slowly, we got out of that place, and on the third day, we were back into the Andes mountain.
Hey! What do you see? You're not gonna believe it! Chocolate! Sweaters? Clean underwear!
The tale was a huge message of how far away we were from whom we were. Through my luggage, there was a sweater that my girlfriend had needed for me on summer. There was a sweater that my mother had brought me for Europe, which was cashmere, which was very good to be against your skin. So in finding again the smell of your house and everything, I re-encountered or refined again with the person I was. And we had the tail, and we had batteries, and we could hear the radio, and we could hear how the world was going on. And we had light, so again, 5-star hotel there. A friend of mine told me, Roberto, we are people like you that can walk for us. And then you realize sometimes that in the groups, your legs belong to the group and not to yourself. And it's a very great feeling, because in that team, you are the person needed to walk, changes your mind. So every step you give, you're closer to life. And that was our approach. Every step is a step. And then when you feel that you are devastated and you cannot walk anymore, after some time, what are you going to do? You're going to die there, lying on the snow? or you just go for another step and get closer, and maybe someday you will reach civilization. That was a very simple approach, very tough, very, very tough. 15,000 feet, 30 degrees below zero. It's a place not appropriate for life. And then you feel you're going to die and that's it, but you don't die. So you begin walking other 33 steps again.
One day after those 72 days, I began to feel well, and suddenly my mother was at home with a horrible face, and I tell her, please, don't put this face. It's the first day I'm feeling well. And she said, it's impossible for me because there are two boys that they say that Uruguayans are coming from that plane.
Por favor, adelante tú desde San Fernando. Bueno, mi querido, te voy a decir los nombres de los chicos. ¿Tú me escuchas? Te escucho. Adelante, por favor. Fernando Parrado. Roberto Canessa. Roberto Canessa.
One of the favorite parts of this story is I was dreaming with the idea of someone telling my girlfriend, he's alive.
I remember that in the middle of the night, I feel that I was sitting up. Somebody sat me in my bed and was hugging me, and it was my father who was crying and telling me, you were right, he's alive.
¿Te sientes en este momento? En este momento me siento casi feliz porque voy a sacar a los compañeros. Hasta que no los saque no voy a ser feliz completamente. Y por los compañeros que fallecieron estoy contento porque sé que están en el cielo.
He was so thin and so weak, but I don't complain because all our friends didn't come back.
Well, the movie was what put the story into the world, but the in-depth of what happened is deeper inside. It's a great film, it's very respected, it was done like 20 years ago, and it's like, for example, the Titanic, you know? There are many windows to look at it. It's impossible to show what happened because no one was there. But it's a great window to tell the new generations what happened there in this experimental situation we were. This book, I Had to Survive, is more than a book, it's a box of tools. It's worth the suffering because you may not suffer anymore, that you can get out of that. That suffering is a transitory situation. The tool of God, the tool of friendship, the tool of courage, the tool of crying, all the tools are there. I really admire this young lad, 19 years old, full of courage and full of hope and full of dreams and full of ignorance, not knowing where he was and what he was doing. I'm sure that nowadays I would die in 2 days' time. Maybe. Maybe not.